Hi IELTS students, in this video we are going to look at comparing different charts. So this is the writing paper, this is task 1. This is what to do if you have not just one picture but two pictures or even more. So what to do? You may have a pie chart, a bar chart, a line graph or a table. And firstly we need to think about the language to describe proportions. So the proportions are the segments or the parts of the chart. It could be the different bars in the bar chart. So key language for this is percent. So note, spell it as two words. Percentage, proportion, amount, share, or segment. So we're not going to say this bit. We can use any of those, which would be a lot better. So at the same time, we need to be able to look at the language of superlatives and comparison to say which, for example, which country had the largest or which had the smallest share. And some keywords here to remember are the most or the least, so that's for a superlative. Largest, smallest, more or less, and greater and smaller, so that's for comparing. So you could look at this one here and you could say the proportion of Australians who liked apples, I don't know what this image is, was smaller than the proportion of Germans. And you could say the Germans and the UK were the countries where most people enjoyed eating apples. There's an example here of two charts. So they are related. They are on the same page, they're connected. So they're related in terms of topics, but there's one time frame. Here, ask yourself, is there a time frame? Do we know? Is it now? Is it past? Is it future? Just check up on that immediately. So they're connected in that you've got the reasons why people travel. So the largest proportion is people going to and from work. The smallest is to visit friends and relatives. And then the issues of why they travel or why they don't travel. So you can say that most people are concerned about the price of travel, whereas only a very few people are concerned about the space for pedestrians. That's like how big is the pavement, for example. So they're connected, but they're not the same. So you're going to do your 5 points in 5 minutes. This is your planning for this question. Time period and what kind of vocab are you going to use? So we're thinking travel, transport. Stand back and look at the big picture. What is it saying? Do I understand it? Think about the language you're going to need. We just looked at that. So you're going to describe, compare. Is it static? Is it dynamic? So is it moving over time? Or is it stable, one period only? Look out for standout data or extremes. What's really unusual here? Or what's not at all unusual? Are they all similar? Or have you got some that are very different? And think about your structure now. Immediately, I want you to be thinking now, how many sections do I need? So once you've had your 5 minutes or so of planning and thinking, you understand the pictures, you need to get going. So you understand the pictures, the same structure as usual. Can you remember how many sections? I want you now to just pause and write your first sentence. Then come back to me here. Which word does the second section start with? And then write the second section. Your second section is going to be like highlights. Tell me the most interesting things. It's almost like a little conclusion, but we're going to put it up here in this section. So you've written your first sentence, you've written your second sentence. Now you're going to describe the first chart, and then in your final paragraph, you're going to describe the second one. So there's no date. So remember, you're going to have to group the data. You could have this one on its own, maybe. You could group those two because they're pretty similar. Or you could group those three and then have that one on its own. Completely your choice. But group the data. You don't want to just write a list. Your language of proportion to describe percentages. Your language of comparison to compare the data. And you want to write 2 or 3 sentences for each image. Don't forget our keywords, whereas, while, respectively, and in contrast. So you've got quite a lot of interesting things to say here. You've also got a lot of words, so be careful to spell these words correctly. This is a little bit more complex, and it is a subject you probably know nothing about. It doesn't matter, you're not expected to. Follow the same process, get your 5 bits of information ready in 5 minutes, have a look at it. So what's it called? US agricultural exports to Cuba. How much food is America sending to Cuba? And what is it? And look at the time frame. We've got 2 different time frames here. So we're going to have to remember that. So we're going to be using which tense? So we need the language of proportion. So it's still the same thing, describing the percentages. Language of comparison. So you're comparing this one to another one, nearly 10 years later. And you've got the language of trend. This is exciting. What happened over time? So you can say it's dynamic, this chart. So the number of exports, poultry and meat, more than doubled. So you've got this kind of language you can bring in to describe those changes over time. Don't be concerned because you know nothing about it. It doesn't matter. You're not meant to. Just have a look at it. So here's some really nice sentences which you could use. These are high-level sentences to give you an example here. So sales of poultry and meat products almost doubled in size over the given period to represent almost half of total exports in 2014. So I'm saying the change, and then I'm saying, what is it now? Now it's almost half. Exports of soybeans remain stable. Okay. My soybeans, yeah. That one remains stable. And soy meal sales increased 5-fold. That's the green one from there to there. So I'm using quite nice language there to describe these changes. So just to summarize, a little reminder there, 2 pie charts on a different topic and the same time frame, the language of proportion and comparison. If it's a different time frame, you're going to need proportion and comparison and change. So just as practice, try this next one as your homework.